Moving on, we reached this part of the code here. So previously we discussed the keyword use, then we have this path here. So we are using the standard IO buff reader. We discussed this in our previous tutorial, and now we reach this part here, which we see a keyword fn here. We have a main. This keyword fn means a function, so we have a main function here, and we have this block that is very important because everything else are inside this block. So in this tutorial we are going to take a look at the keyword fn and the meaning of the main function. Functions are very important in Rust and basically in every programming language. And before we reach into functions, let's talk about the main function. If you're familiar with C, you already seen how important the main function is, and the same concept applies to the main function in Rust. In our previous example, and actually in the hello world example, we've seen that there is this keyword fn, then we have main, then we have some brackets, then we have curly brackets with things inside, and this function prints hello world. So let's start talking about the keyword fn that is used to define a function. Like we see here, fn main. So the keyword fn is used for a function or a function pointer. And functions are the primary way code is executed in Rust. We have function blocks, which are usually called functions, and they can be defined in a variety of different places and be assigned many different attributes and modifiers. What we see here in the main function is what is called a standalone function. So basically we can create a function using the keyword fn, then we have a name. And just for best practices, let's say that the Rust code uses the snake case as the conventional style for function and variable names, in which all letters are lowercase and underscored separate words, like we can see here. Standalone function, then we have just some brackets here. If we would have arguments or parameters to this function, we could put inside here. Then we have curly brackets, and here goes some code that will execute something. We define a function in Rust by entering the keyword fn followed by a function name and a set of parentheses. Then the curly brackets tell the compiler where the function body begins and ends. We can call any function we defined by entering its name followed by a set of parentheses. In this case here, we are defining a function called another function, and inside this function we have a print statement that will print another function. Then we have a main function. So first we'll print hello world, and then it will call this function and it will print another function. There are a lot of things to talk about functions, and we will have to come back to functions later on. At the moment we're just talking about this line of the code here, where we have the keyword fn that we've seen that it's used to define functions, and we are seeing the main function. As we talked before, that the main function is very special because it's always the first code that runs in every executable Rust program. So we see that there are a lot of things going on inside this main function, and we're going to discuss later. But for now, we just seen that we can use the keyword fn to declare functions, and functions can be standalone functions, or functions can also have some arguments. We can see in this case here, for example, that we're defining a function called another function, and this function takes some parameter, which is x, and x should be a signed 32-bit integer, and then this function will print this sentence here, the value of x is, and then it will get the value of x from here when we pass an argument to the function, and then it will print. So in this case we have a main function that we've seen what the main function means, and inside this main function we have this another function, and there is this value of 5. That means that this another function is taking this value of 5 and then it's put in here, and it will print the value of x is 5. So if you run this small program here, you would get the result in the terminal that the value of 5, that the value of x is 5. So we're printing the value of x is x, but x, where x should be a 32-bit signed integer. And here we are saying that we are using this function, another function, and we are passing the value 5. So when the function looks at this, takes 5 and then it prints, and we have the result of the value of x is 5. In this case of the main function, it doesn't return anything, it doesn't take any arguments. It's a special function in Rust and in many other languages. And we just see that we have the curly brackets here, and there are a lot of things going inside that are going to be executed when we run this example. In the next tutorial we will talk about the keyword let, and then we will talk about everything that is in this line here. Of course we cannot go deep, there are very complex structures here that we're going to see along this series of tutorials.